Hey team, I just wanted to break down Dean's snatch. Okay, give you some feedback, some things to think about, things to look for. So we'll watch his snatch first. So he's doing a power snatch. So he's done 2 reps. All right, now let's look at the start position. So everything's looking pretty good. It's just this area here, I'd like to see a little bit more of an arch created there. So I just got to force his chest up a little bit more. As we come up, I like that position, weights in the heels. So the bar's just above the knee. He's hitting that position pretty good. And then hits fairly good extension. Just the thing is, it's very, very slow. Okay, so when we do any sort of Olympic lifting movement especially, but most movements, we want to contract our quads, contract our glutes violently. That's where all the power comes from. That's how that bar's going to shoot from the hips, literally overhead without doing anything with the arms. Because he's moving so slow, he's got to use so much arms to finish the pull and to get that bar overhead. Now, the next thing, he doesn't move his feet when he's power snatching. Okay, so Dean, you need to move your feet like you were in your squat snatch, which we'll look at in a second. So start under the hips and they finish in your squat position. You come up onto your toes and then just drop your heels down to finish the lift. So let's watch the next one in full speed. So he hits all the positions pretty well. It's just really slow extension and the feet don't really move. So if he comes up onto his toes and then his heels just drop down. Feet didn't move to a squat stance and he's just shooting his knees forward. Okay, so in that position, it's sort of like a push press position, not a squat position. Okay, so feet need to be wider, knees need to be out, hips back a little bit more. So it's more of a squat position. So he cannot move down into a half squat from that position. Okay, he'll just get stuck at this point and end up dropping the bar forward. Okay, so that's not a squat position. We need to finish in a squat position. That's more like a push press, push jerk position. Okay, so definitely needs to work on footwork and hip extension in that power snatch, but it needs to be more like your power and your squat snatch should be the same. It's just your depth. Okay. The next one, let me go back. Okay, this is the squat snatch. So he's actually moving his feet. Dean, I'd suggest for you to work on your squat a little bit more so it's a little bit more fluid. It's not sticky as you go down. So you need to work on your squat, whether you put more time into mobility before you actually do a squat snatch or overhead squat, so you can move through that squat a little bit more freely. So here's the next rep. So set up, same sort of thing. There's a little bit of a rounded position here, which I'd like to see a little bit more of an arch. Coming up, hits positions pretty well. His knees probably didn't come to full extension, so he needs to think about squeezing his quads. So I think you all need to think about what muscles are doing what. Your glutes are contracting the hip. Your glutes need to contract to extend the hips. Quads need to contract to extend the knees. So we need to actually, don't think about jumping. We're thinking about contracting those muscles together simultaneously, and that's going to produce a lot of power. If you don't do it together, it's going to be out of time and you're not going to get the same result. A good way to practice this is to just do a Russian kettlebell swing. We can literally just focus on contracting your glutes and contracting your quads to extend. Okay, so that's a good way to practice it without thinking about the full movement of the snatch. And a good way to practice it is in the snatch pull, thinking about contracting your quads and glutes simultaneously to produce a lot of power and to get that bar elevated. So yeah, on the squat snatch, I'd say work on your squat mobility because it's very sticky as you go down. So it doesn't need to be sticky. You need to be able to pull yourself down. Now I'm going to share a squat snatch video. This was 120 on the bar. This is me squat snatching that. So my focus through this period, I remember, was my setup. So getting my chest up nice and high, my back nice and flat. So you can see how violent my hip extension is in that snatch. But I remember emphasizing the setup when I was doing this. So what I wanted to do is get my bum down nice and low, chest up nice and high to create that nice flat back. So my shoulder blades are pulled together, so my shoulders aren't hanging forward. That was what I was emphasizing through a phase of snatching. And then as I pull off the floor, the knees come back, see above the knee, shins are vertical. So the weights transition from in the start position, it's more on my forefoot. So more on that first lace. I can feel weight through my whole foot, but it's more towards the forefoot, towards the front. And then as I start the pull, the weight's going to transition to the heels, to above the knees. Okay, the weight's in the heels. Then I start to sweep the bar back. So I'm actively pushing the bar back into my body. If I don't push it back, it's just going to hang out way in front. And then meet the bar with my hips. Ideally, at this point, my heels should still be on the ground. Okay, so I've come up onto the toes a little bit early. Heels should still be on the ground until I hit that extension point where my hips, my ankles, and my knees extend all together. Okay, so that's that point there. So see, my ankles are extended, I'm up on my toes. That's going to allow me to move my feet. My knees are extended, my quads are contracted to do that. And my hips are extended, so my glutes are contracted. Got this sort of lean back. I'm starting to pull that bar up and transition myself under the bar. Okay, so feet leave the floor. My wrists stay above the bar, so I can pull myself under. My feet transition from hip width to squat. See how I'm moving my feet? So it'll be the same with the power snatch. Feet hit the floor and I start pressing up into the bar as it comes down. And then stand it up to finish. So they're the things we want to think about with the snatch. Like I said, with the power and the squat snatch, we want to make it the same. We want to practice violently extending our hips. We want to practice contracting the right muscles. So we want to contract our quads, contract our glutes to get that violent hip extension. So Dean, that's what I want you to focus on, is practicing getting some violent hip extension and work on your squat so your squat snatch is more fluid. Start to get that footwork in your power snatch so it's consistent. So your power snatch and squat snatch are very consistent with each other. All it is the depth and the weight. You add more weight, you need to squat under. That's the difference between the two lifts. All right, so any questions, just put in the comments. I hope that helped and cleared a few positions up and focus points. A tool which I love is the kettlebell swing or a Russian kettlebell swing to start to practice contracting your quads and glutes violently. You can even attach a band to it and hook it under your feet, and that's going to provide a little bit more resistance and a bit more emphasis on contracting violently.